language therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy, assistive technology services, all these stuff that you see on line 23, that the insurance policies give those benefits to the insured. And they said, though, that once the insurance policy finds out the child has autism, it revokes those services. I thought that was not fair. So I wanted to pass a bill that says that if you provide these services, you can't unprovide them once you find out that the person has autism. That's what I'm trying to do with the bill. The applied behavior analysis was put in there by, well, I don't know how it got in there. I didn't intend it on being there. I just kind of don't want to delve into that issue because he just dealt with it and I know what the results will be. So.
Okay. You've heard the explanation of the patron. Are there questions of Delegate Albo? All right, is there anyone else here to speak in favor of the measure? Presume might be opposition. And if you would, Doug, would you address it with the amendment as well? We haven't adopted it. We haven't adopted it.
Mr. Chairman, I'm Doug Gray. I'm the Executive Director of the Virginia Association of Health Plans. This early intervention mandate, it provides a set of services to children who have a learning disability, of a certain learning loss of development of a certain percentage. The services in here should not be denied to a child on the basis of a diagnosis of autism. And in fact, the state code has a mandate for services, medically necessary services for autism, and that's what these are. And the state code section is 38.2, 3412.101, and it's coverage for biologically based mental illnesses. And if you look in section E, for the purposes of this section, a biologically based mental illness is any mental or nervous condition caused by a biological disorder of the brain that results in a clinically significant syndrome that substantially limits the person's functioning. Specifically, the following diagnoses are defined as biologically based mental illnesses. There's a long list, and in the list is autism. I'm here to say to you that my company cannot do that as a matter of law. And I will do whatever I can to get to the bottom of any case in which there's a complaint. But I wanted to let you know we already have a statute that requires that, and it shouldn't happen. If you look at the bill itself, I don't think the patron intended to expand the offerings under the early intervention services, and that's why I think he's offered to strike that. The rest of his language, I think, is not necessary because I think it's already required by the state law that I referenced and its mandate of autism as a mandated benefit.
Let me ask you this question, though, Doug. If he's been in a meeting with his constituents and they've said they've had this experience, how does he go about establishing to them, to the companies that have done this, this is...
I would be more than happy to be a resource for any legislator who has a situation like this from a constituent, and I'd be glad to work with the Bureau of Insurance on it as well. And if we find that there's some reason or challenge or something that has happened that doesn't make sense or creates a public policy issue, I'm glad to be back here to discuss it with you.
Thank you. Delegate Moore.
Could you give us that slide again?
Yes, I have a copy right here if you'd like it.
Thank you.
It's 38.2, 3412.101.
Is anyone else who would care to speak to this measure? All right. Delegate Jansen.
I understand why the amendment that's offered by Delegate Albo is there. It's because if you have the language applied behavior analysis in a list that's prefaced by medically necessary speech and language therapy, that then what it does is, by operation of law,
That's right.
make applied behavior analysis medically necessary speech and language therapy and effectuates a change in the law and expansion. Let me ask you this. do some insurance policies cover applied behavior analysis, even though it's not required to be covered as medically necessary speech and language therapy?
I'm not aware of companies in Virginia who do that, but I am aware that there are examples given by advocates and others from other states where in fact they do. The status of law in those states is different than the status of law in this state.
Further questions, Chairman?
Delegate Janice?
So, I mean, if we adopted the, first of all, point of order,
We
if
have
we
not adopted the amendment.
you could just as easily effectuate the same outcome, couldn't you, if instead of striking the words applied behavior analysis, you struck the words in line 22 medically necessary, couldn't you?
I mean, that would undermine the rest of the things that are listed in this statute, which frankly is an important statute to many children with early intervention challenges.
Further questions, Mr. Chairman?
Delegate Janice?
Because without that medically necessary language there, what would happen is there would be what the point of contention would be not whether or not speech and language therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy, and assistive technology services and devices, which were otherwise previously covered, would not be provided because of the diagnosis. The question would be which of these were medically necessary. That would create the ambiguity that would cause more disputes over what was covered and what wasn't. Is that basically the analysis of it?
I think I follow what you're saying, and I think that's right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Delegate Albo?
Well, I had a break, I read it, I mean, Doug's right, it says right here that it's covered. Maybe I could ask you to lay it on the table, and if I learned something different, come back and ask to take it off the
Mr.
table.
Chair, we had a similar bill in full committee that we carried over, and it's under a similar situation, and then we could do the same thing.
That would be better. We
Take
can
it
keep
over.
it alive,
Take
carry
it
it
over.
over. I mean, Mr. Chairman, it might be like you were saying, it might be a situation where the constituents don't know how to address or fix the problem as opposed to a problem with the law.
Right.
So it seems
We have a motion to carry over. And a second. Discussion on that motion. Hearing none, those in favor of the motion to carry over House Bill 730 will indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? So ordered. Unanimously. Thank you, Delegate Albo.
Thank you very much.